Hi everyone, I'm the Soap Queen Anne-Marie from BrambleBerry.com, and today I have a really fun project for you. This is a cold process bar of soap with a little tiny melt and pour topping, and we're going to do an in the mold swirl with this. This uses Bramble Berry's brand new Blackberry sugar fragrance that acts so nicely in soap, and yes, it smells like blackberries that are dipped and soaked in sugar and a little bit of milk. You're going to love it. Getting started with this project is pretty simple. It is a regular cold process bar of soap, except for that little topper on top. First of all, we're using Bramble Berry's low sweat clear soap. Clear melt and pour may get the moisture from the air and really draw it to the little tiny ball on the top. So that's why we're using the low sweat melt and pour, which has less liquid glycerin in it to help it stay nice and sweat free or humidity free in your cold process soap. We're gonna melt this down and put it in these cute little 9-bar molds here that make the tiny little toppers. And finally, for the toppers, we are going to be using the Bramble Berry Juice Bar Collection color blocks. So these are really, really heavily colored blocks of colorant that you just chop into small little bits, put in your melt and pour, and what you see is what you get. So no guessing with your colorants when you're using the Bramble Berry color blocks for melt and pour. Next, let's move into our cold process part. I'm using the Bramble Berry Swirl Quick Mix recipe. So this is a recipe that I designed to make sure that you have enough time to swirl your soap so it doesn't move too quickly. It's a really well formulated recipe with enough liquid oils to give you plenty of time to get great swirls each and every time. Going to be using 3 of Bramble Berry's colorants, the Crimson Red, the Purple Rain, and the Lilac Mirage Ultra Sparkle, which is a slightly larger particle size to really get you that ultra sparkle look on top of your soap. And the real star of the show, well, that is the Bramble Berry Blackberry Sugar Fragrance. It is one of our latest collections, and it smells juicy, fresh, vivacious, and yes, like blackberries and sugar all rolled up into one juicy, happy fragrance. First things first, we're just gonna take a couple ounces of our light cold process low sweat melt and pour soap from Bramble Berry and melt it down in the microwave. And this is such a small amount, but you're still probably gonna have a little bit left over because it's really hard to melt down just small enough amounts. There we go. And next, we're just gonna take small bits of our colorant blocks and just put them directly into your soap base and stir. And remember, what you see is what you get. So if you're happy with the colorant, that is not gonna change once it is in its little tiny 9-bar mold. So this is perfect. I did just about 1/4 of that color block to achieve this color. Then I'm gonna pour gently into these molds, trying hard not to overfill. And it's melt and pour soap, so if you overfill, it's not that big of a deal. You just have a little bit of cleanup at the end. And now I'm gonna work on my purple. And I'm gonna go for about 1/4, and I'm gonna chop it into 2 sizes because the smaller that these are, the easier they are to melt down. Just let the heat of that soap melt these colorants down. And if it's not quite hot enough, you can always pop it in the microwave, but this is such a small amount of soap that you're really gonna wanna be thinking like 10-second bursts, definitely not 30 seconds, because you'll end up boiling that soap right over. Okay, so we used 1/4 of that purple to get this gorgeous purple color. It's a nice, bright, vibrant color. And then these will just need to sit for a couple hours, and then you can pop them right out, and then you'll be ready for part 2 of your process. Let's get started making our soap. First things first, always suit up for safety, gloves on, goggles on, kids and pets not in this room. You've got at least 45 minutes to an hour to make the soap. You're in a well-ventilated area and you're ready to do the work, preparing ahead of time to ensure that this is a successful batch. The secret is always in the preparation. So here, I've got my colorants already pre-mixed. That's 1 teaspoon of colorant to 1 tablespoon of oil. I use the Bramble Berry little quick mixer just to get out any clumps. Next, I've got my fragrance all weighed out. This is 2.4 ounces of the blackberry sugar. Oh, cannot get enough of it. And my oils are melted, and they're right about 125. My lye water is done, also around 120. I've added sodium lactate to this mixture already. My mold is ready to go, and my little toppers for the top are all ready. So let's get started. First things first, pouring gently down the stick blender just to help prevent air bubbles. Now for this recipe, we're gonna be splitting off 1/3 of the recipe approximately. You can eyeball that if you want. You can kind of look at it here. You can kind of do what you want there. I'm gonna go ahead and eyeball it. And now that I'm at a nice thin trace, I am not close to being ready to pour. So I want to give myself lots of time to work with this. So I'm just gonna pour 1/3 of this off into the recipe here, or into another container. And there we go. So this is just about 2 cups. I've left about 4 cups in here. And I'm gonna save this because I do wanna use this, but if I pour all of this in here, I won't be able to get my colorant to work. So first things first, we're gonna work on the larger size. That's gonna take all of this particular fully dispersed Purple Rain Mica. It's a gorgeous color. Now, I know for a fact, because I've done this recipe before, that I'm gonna want more than just this purple. So to pump up the kind of warmth in this recipe, I am going to do a little bit of this dispersed crimson. I'm just gonna try for about 1 teaspoon. And remember, it's not quite what you see is what you get. You're actually gonna get just a little bit lighter once the soap is fully cured out. So if you don't love this color, I definitely would recommend playing with it. Part of the way this design works is by having a very similar color palette. It creates a really sophisticated, cool look. So I'm gonna keep this, and then I'm gonna do 1 teaspoon of the dispersed Purple Rain Mica into my smaller 2-cup size. We're just gonna get a nice light purple. That'll leave me with a little bit left, and yes, I do save these so I can use them in the future. I'm gonna put my stick blender in here and just really quickly give this a stick blend. Now, my final thing is to add my fragrance. So again, it's gonna be kind of a 2-part to 1 part. So I'm gonna do 1 part in here and the rest of it in here, and give it a quick stick blend. And again, if you don't know how the fragrance is gonna behave, always hand stir in with a whisk, never stick blend. In this case, I've made this recipe enough, and I happen to know it's a fully tested Brambleberry cold processed fragrance oil. So now, because I'm gonna be doing it in the mold swirl, I'm just gonna pour a lot of this in here. And there we go. Put that to the side. And then I'm gonna go low and slow and kind of try to get some of those awesome striations you saw. This is a pretty nice trace. I'm gonna start with the color that I have the most of. So I'm gonna fully put it in the bottom, and then I'm just gonna start pouring low and slow. And what I'm noticing right now is my soap is just getting a little bit grainy. So I'm just gonna whisk both of these because I saw just a little bit of graininess, and I don't want that soap trace being too thin or feeling like it's gonna separate in the mold. So keep that in mind. You just really wanna be watching that trace. This is looking so good. Remember, that top is gonna be finished off with those topper balls, and we are also going to be putting mica on the top. So the top, you don't have to worry about the design. What we're really waiting for is this trace to thicken up so that the design can actually hold in the top. So we're probably gonna end up waiting for about 5 to 10 minutes after I've poured this for that trace to be thick enough. We'll see. So it's been just a couple minutes, and I know that this is really a gorgeous, gorgeous texture that's gonna give me the ability to just make those fantastic, beautiful textured dips and swirls and eddies. So this has been about 5 minutes, and you can see it's really thick. It's holding its shape beautifully. So now I am going to use a very fine mica duster, which is basically a tea strainer, to get this beautiful color on. I'm gonna put on some Lilac Mirage Ultra Sparkle. And again, this is extra large particles, so it's really gonna make for a beautiful large dusting of sparkle and mica. And it looks so pretty. It's catching the light beautifully. And then it's time to place my little balls that I made ahead of time. And remember, everywhere you place a ball, you are going to cut in between. So you're going to want to place these pretty closely. In fact, if you're trying to do precision soap making, you could always score this ahead of time to really showcase where you want to place the balls. I made this enough times that I found that just basically placing them almost right next to each other is the perfect amount of spacing. One thing to keep in mind too is since you do have melt and pour soap on the top of this, you don't want to gel phase this super, super hot. So I'm actually just gonna spray with 99% rubbing alcohol and then put this on the heating pad for just about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm not gonna force a full gel phase because I don't want my melt and pour soap to have anything but staying there and not melting. So here we go. Now it's 99% rubbing alcohol time, a little bit of heating pad, and then I'm going to be able to unmold this in 2 to 3 days. So we made this just a few days ago. You can see it is already coming out really nicely. I love how the Bramble Berry Swirl Quick Mix with the sodium lactate really helps to unmold quickly. This is gorgeous. It smells so good. I can hardly wait to cut this and see what our swirls look like inside. First things first, always a non-serrated knife, and I'm just gonna cut in between those little ball toppers. This is cutting beautifully. Now remember, twist off, never pull off. And what a spectacular swirl we have. If that doesn't evoke blackberries, summer, and just running through the fields, I don't know what would. So now I am just going to put them to the side, put them on my drying rack, let them evaporate out and fully cure, dry, and harden over the next 4 to 6 weeks before I use them or give them away or sell them. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Of course, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification button so that you are told each and every time we come out with a new video. Until next time, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Happy soaping. I can't wait to see you make this project.